My name is Angela. I'm a wife, mom, writer, and photographer behind the blog Crown and Countryside. Join me on my quest to create a slower life with natural food and homemaking.
Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be doing some really fun end of summer stuff. We are going to be water bath canning some tomato sauce and some plum jam, some cherry preserves. We have a peach pie going, and we are making a healthy version of chocolate pudding. So stay tuned. We will dig into all of this. My jars are sterilizing on the stove. I just plopped them in the water bath canner and turned them on with some water. And I am getting ready to peel the tomatoes. There's a lot of back and forth about whether or not to leave the skins and seeds on your tomatoes. A lot of people feel strongly one way or another. I take them off because the skins and the seeds in a sauce can actually add a little bit of bitterness. And some people really like the flavor that it adds, and they just strain it out when they use it. However, I just take mine out. It's different when the skins and seeds are on a fresh tomato, like on a slice, versus heating them up. It just adds a different flavor to the sauce. So I opt to take them off, and so I'm just going to put them on the stove. The hornworms were really bad this year, so I cut off all the bad pieces and threw them in my compost, as well as the stems there. With plum preserves, though, there is no issue with leaving the skins on. Plums are just delicious, and so I just took the pits out, threw them in a pot, and put the rest of my ingredients in. Pumpkin spice has got nothing on this. Plums with just a little bit of natural sweetener and spices are just to die for. I used some cinnamon and some ginger and just some wonderful fall spices. I've been completely in summer mode, but this is really getting me into fall. Just tasting this makes me excited for the cool weather that we have coming up ahead. I always throw a little bit of vanilla extract into just about everything I do. It's either vanilla for the sweet stuff or probably garlic for the savory stuff. That's my version of being extra. I've got a whole little bowl there going out to the compost of just the food scraps. The plums are so good this time of year. And here's the cherry preserves. I just had a bunch of cherries in my fridge and wanted to use them up. They filled up a couple of jars, but I really don't need tons and tons of cherries. Just 1 or 2 is fine. Now this is for the peach pie. I just sat at the table here for a while and just peeled peaches. It's nice thinking time to just sit and peel fruit. It is the simple things, I just was looking at these and realizing that peaches have, between the skins and the centers and everything, they just have all of the colors of like a sunset or something. So I'm kind of marveling. I always think fruits and vegetables and flowers are some of the most beautiful things in the world, but I just love the color of these yellow peaches. They're so pretty. I actually don't grow peaches or plums. I would love to have more fruit trees, but I was able to pick these up on sale and wanted to process them as though I did. That's the thing. You don't have to grow everything that you process. You can have a total canning kitchen no matter where you get the fruits and vegetables. I would love to have the land to plant some apple trees and peach trees and a bunch of different things. That's called #goals for sure. People always say on social media, I would love to homestead, but I don't have any land. And I really think homesteading is not just having a land and having a farm. You don't have to have a dairy cow or a pig, although you totally can. That is kind of a staple of homesteading. People with a dairy cow are often homesteaders. But even if you don't, it's almost like a mindset of reducing your waste, becoming a producer, not a consumer. You probably won't grow all of your food or raise all of your food if you live in an apartment. But if you are putting your money towards farmers markets and supporting local agriculture and canning your food and cooking from scratch, you can totally be a homesteader. I think that not everyone is able to have tons of, crops and animals and things like that. But I think if you are like what I would call a second tier homesteader, if you are putting your money towards those farmers who are, and, skimming your own cream for your coffee because you bought milk from the farmer or whatever, I think that would be an example of a second tier homesteader. No one does everything. No one does everything. It's okay to not do everything. Some people line dry their clothes. Some people have no connection to the grid. Some people don't have internet by choice, not by necessity. Some people grow and produce every bite of what they eat. But you don't have to. You don't have to. If everyone's just doing what they can, there's no shame in that. It's meaningful work. I was really excited to find this ricer secondhand and have a chance to use it. My grandma had something that was kind of similar when I was a kid, and I canned tomatoes with her. So I found this one like at a garage sale or something. It has the 3 pieces, and it's super easy to strain tomatoes through. So these have been simmering on the stove while I peeled the peaches, and so now I can put them through the strainer and can the liquid. It's a sprig of rosemary that I boiled with the tomatoes. It all gets strained out. I like that the strainer has its own little bucket that it sits on, so it catches all of the sauce. So now I'm putting it in the jars. The sauce is pretty thin, so when I open the jars, I'm going to have to boil it down a little bit to thicken the sauce. If I want to make ketchup or something like that, I'm going to have to boil it down a lot more. But just for a regular pizza sauce or spaghetti sauce or something, I'll boil it to about till it's reduced probably in half. This is just plain sauce. It has salt and it has lemon juice in it, but I didn't season it. I did put a little bit of rosemary in it, but otherwise, I'm going to have to add Worcestershire sauce or sugar or other things in order to make the sauce that I'm going to need for different dishes. But now this is just the plain tomato. And one of the reasons I like canning plain tomato is because, one, I won't be hunting on my pantry shelves for exactly the right kind of sauce. Like, oh, I wish I'd canned more spaghetti sauce versus pizza sauce or whatever. This can become any of that. And I just open the jar, put it on the stove, and finish making it. This last jar isn't quite full, so I have to put that one in the refrigerator. I won't can it because it's not full enough, and I can just use it first. It's probably going to be tomato soup this week or something like that. Now the plums have to be processed separately from the tomatoes. If they have the same processing time, I would have just thrown them all in the water bath canner together, but they were supposed to be in there for different amounts of time. So I ran them in 2 batches, which is no big deal. It's just a pot of boiling water. There's no pressure gauge or anything like that. So it's pretty easy to do other things while you're waiting for it. That one is a little too full. I need about 1/4 inch of headspace at least. Now this is the cherry preserves. It is almost literally just cherries and sugar. It is the easiest thing ever to make. If you're already canning and you have some extra cherries in the fridge, just throw them in. Why not? I just processed them for the same amount of time as the plums because you can, so I did. These are going to be great for Christmas. Especially the sweet ones will leave a sticky residue on the rims, so you want to make sure that the rims are all clean, because if the jar doesn't seal, your food will spoil on the shelf. Even if you use salt, even if you use vinegar, even if you use pectin or sugar or something else that's going to keep the food fresh, if the jar is not sealed, its life on the shelf is going to be a lot shorter. So here it is in the water bath canner. It is not quite there, so I can't start the timer until it starts actually rolling boil, but this is more like what we're looking for here. Then I can start the timer for the processing time. You can water bath can in any stock pot. It doesn't have to be any specific type of pot, but that is a water bath canner. I'm not the best at labeling my jars or my seeds or anything that I do. So I was taking the time to actually write what is in the jar. Okay, now this is going to be the pie crust. You can totally do a pie crust by hand. You don't need to have a KitchenAid mixer. However, I really love my KitchenAid, and I think that it just does a great job, so why not? That liquid that I threw in before the flour was the sourdough starter. So I just pulled that out of the fridge. I keep it in the fridge so I don't have to feed it every day, and I have a 2-jar system that I use. There's a million ways to keep a sourdough starter, but I found that way works pretty well for me. Just rolling out the pie crust. You have to handle the pie crust a little bit, but the main thing with a good pie crust is to keep it cold. So if you get interrupted, stick it in the refrigerator. Keep it cold and handle it as little as possible. You have to handle it a little bit when you're rolling it out, but if you just work quickly and put it into the pan, it's going to be just fine. I love a good butter crust. It's amazing. In hindsight, I do wish I had doubled the recipe because I trimmed it a little bit too close and it shrunk. And also I didn't have quite enough for the top crust. So I could have rolled it a little bit thinner or doubled it or something. But it was still delicious and I am not sorry at all that I made it. So this is the top crust here. I feel like it was a little bit small. It didn't fully cover the top of the pie, but that's okay. It tastes good anyway. This experience is making me definitely want to make more pies. I don't make pies all that often, and I really want to hone my skills a little bit more. So I'm putting the peaches in. I feel like in retrospect, I wish I had cut the pieces smaller, but otherwise it turned out really well. The flavor was just perfect. The filling was perfect. So I have some lessons learned for the next time I make this recipe, but it was a very good recipe. I built the pie right there in the crust. There's a million ways to do a pie filling. You can make them on the stovetop. You can can them a year ahead and empty it into the pie. There's all kinds of things that you can do. I just built mine right then and there, which you can do with a lot of fruits and berries and things. Now this is the pudding. I actually made this recipe a couple times before I finalized it and decided exactly how I wanted the recipe to go. I decided that returning it to the heat was going to be the best way to go. The first time I whisked and whisked and whisked, and it just wouldn't, it wouldn't just congeal. But when you put it back on the stove after you add the flour, it's just perfect. So you have to put all of your ingredients except the flour into the saucepan. Heat it up until it's bubbling but not boiling. Then add the flour, or remove it from the heat and then add the flour, and then return it to the heat. And that's the ticket right there. And just stir it over the heat while it is while it's firming up. I was unsure at first whether I needed to use whole eggs or egg yolks, or if I needed to add cornstarch, which I don't like doing, but I finally got it and I was pretty happy with it. If you use a natural sweetener, it's going to be pretty healthy. That is the secret right there, is the sweetener. Everything else in this recipe is fairly good for you. It's eggs, it's cream. Even the cocoa powder is not so bad. It's the sugar. And that is why this is a treat, not a main food. Since the liquid that I'm working with is hot, when you add the eggs, you have to stir it pretty quickly and incorporate the egg before it cooks, because you do not want a solid egg yolk in the middle of your pudding. You want it to be fully incorporated and give it that velvety, smooth pudding texture. And this is after I have removed it from the heat the second time. So it really thickened up and did a lot of great things. The heat just did wonders. That's all I had for today. Thanks for joining me.
See you next week.